some of you may be aware that Thomas Jefferson, in his original draft of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, included long passages condemning the institution of slavery and laying it at the feet of George III, blaming George III for this invidious institution that's been imposed upon the Americans. It was essentially Jefferson's argument. But of course, Jefferson sat by during that Second Continental Congress as they were debating the Declaration of Independence and the whole Independence Resolution. I'm talking here about 1776. We're not yet to the Constitution, right? In Congress, at the time that they were debating the Independence Resolution and the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson, who had drafted this very powerful language condemning slavery, sat by idly while his colleagues in Congress deleted passage after passage. All of these references to slavery. You can go out, I'm not making it up, you can go out and Google Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration of Independence, and you can see what I'm talking about. All that language was removed, right? And makes one wonder, well, why would Jefferson, if he found the institution of slavery morally repugnant, why would he sit by idly while please turn off your cell phone, it distracts me incredibly, okay? Why would he sit by idly while his colleagues in Congress just simply take that language out? Well, many people are quick to point that out. By the way, John Jay, who I mentioned to you a moment ago, was also a slaveholder. Many of them owned slaves, and we find it very difficult in 2019 to reconcile that. How could, Fagan, if you're telling us the truth, if John Jay and Thomas Jefferson and Eldridge Allsworth and some of these other people who were such vocal critics of slavery really were opposed to slavery, how could they hold slaves? I can't reconcile that for you. That's something you're going to have to do. It's a very difficult question because we're applying 2019 thinking. All I can tell you is that when Jefferson and Jay and these people, made these very impassioned criticisms of slavery, I think they really meant it. I think they were committed to it. Okay? Some of you may know, for example, that Jefferson ordered his slaves to be released upon his death, although that didn't happen. I mean, even though he left that order for the slaves to be released. So I just really can't offer you an explanation that's going to satisfy you, except to say perhaps that, these men were like us, like many of us today. We find a way to stand on principle, stand on principle, stand on principle, stand on principle, until it comes, until it runs counter to something we want to do that is against principle, and then we find a way to rationalize it. We as human beings have a way of doing that, right? Principle, 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 principle. Oh, but not this time, right? Or not in this instance. But I don't think that really changes the fact that Jay and Jefferson and some of these other names that I mentioned to you really did find slavery repugnant. Okay? But I think there's a more practical issue and an issue that's more directly related to the question that I put in front of you. Why did Jefferson just sit by idly? And well, I think Jefferson was eminently practical. And there's something you have to understand about the way that Congress worked at the time of the Independence Resolution, the Second Continental Congress. Each state, as they were now calling themselves, no longer colonies, each state had one vote. Not each representative in Congress, each state. So Pennsylvania had one vote, South Carolina had one vote, Georgia had one vote, New York had one vote, etc. And any resolution before Congress, not just the Independence Resolution, but including the Independence Resolution, had to carry unanimously. So that if even one state refused to give its vote in favor of the Independence Resolution, the cause of independence was dead. So I think that's probably the best answer I can give you for why Jefferson would have just sat there and not said anything while all of these passages were removed from his document, because I think he understood first things first, right? Everything else is irrelevant if the independence cause is lost, right? So in order to get independence done, I think Jefferson went along with it. Now, back to where we started. I asked you, were there people at the Constitutional Convention who would have abolished slavery if they could have? if it had been within their power? And I think the answer to that question is yes. But I think that, again, it's a matter of practicality. They believe they have to get this Constitution done. And if they had included any language in there that might have allowed Congress to abolish the slave trade, it probably would have meant defeat of the Constitution.